Did you SoulCycle this morning?
No, and I feel like my whole day is off.
Oh, why?
Because my favorite way to start a day is basically at a nightclub. I want to be in a dark room. I want it to be a dark room.
Yeah.
I want there to be strobe lights, and I want somebody's ponytail in my mouth.
Okay.
And that's the ideal way, I think, to start any day.
Okay.
And today I played tennis.
But SoulCycle, you equate to a nightclub?
Yes.
The vibe.
The vibe of a nightclub. Have you ever been to a class?
I have done a few SoulCycles, yes. Yeah.
And none of that hit for you?
I guess, well, one, I don't ever want a ponytail in my mouth. That's the worst experience at a club. And then I've done SoulCycle, but I get on my regular bike. And
right, you ride out in the world.
I ride, from San Francisco to Los Angeles.
Well, I ride to infinity.
Okay, you win. What?
Nothing.
No, say it.
It's making me laugh because I was really anti-SoulCycle before I was, I had been told by a number of friends that it was something that, I was going to love. And I just have this part of my personality that, the more somebody's like, you're going to love this.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I don't think so. But in 2015, when my marriage started to get a little woo, somebody caught me on just the right day. And I was like, fuck it. Let's go to SoulCycle.
And where was your first class?
It was in the Castro in San Francisco.
Okay.
And I cried in the dark.
The first class?
The first class, I cried. And it was completely dark and I felt safe.
Yeah.
And I realized how much I was feeling. And sadly, it was to a Celine Dion song. Not the Titanic song, but
all by myself?
I honestly hope so. I don't remember because it was shit.
You gotta remember.
Yep. And but it something clicked for me in that room, and I've been doing it now for 10 years, and
you have your own bike?
And I have my own bike in my house, which I had already purchased before the pandemic, and then I was just riding all the time to nowhere. Mm-hmm. But the thing I've always found about it is that it's always cathartic. Yeah. I mean, I'm not crying every time, and especially not when I'm alone, but there is something about pushing yourself really to I think a physical limit that sort of opens something up. Yeah. And it was I'm hooked. Yeah. I'm such a proponent of it, and I'm always trying to sell it. As much as I'm trying not to sell TM, I'm trying to sell SoulCycle. Yeah. I've got pamphlets for SoulCycle.
Literature.
So I am very, very excited today to talk to my first instructor.
Was she the one in the
She
Castro?
was. Rachael Brooke was my first SoulCycle instructor. She put Celine Dion at the end of her playlist.
Is this a normal thing,
maybe
Rachel?
she can tell us what song it was. Or I've completely made up that it was a Celine Dion song.
I'm convinced that it was all by myself.
Anyway, maybe she can tell us.
Yeah.
But let me just, before we bring her in here, I just want to let's talk more about Rachael.
Yeah.
Rachael Brooke is a SoulCycle instructor and a holistic movement coach with 14 years of experience helping people build strength, resilience, and body trust. But alongside her work in fitness, Rachael is also a certified pet loss specialist, supporting people through grief and end-of-life moments. And the thread through everything she does is a belief in slowing down, staying honest, and building practices that actually make sense. So we're so happy to have you here today.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Do you remember what Celine Dion songs you play?
I am 99% sure because I do have a remix of the Titanic song, whichever one that is.
Damn it was.
No. But if I ended class with it or towards the end of class, I'm 99% sure that it was That's the Way It Is.
Oh, great one. Another great one.
And I could totally see where you were at in your life and being and that's something I would play in the Castro too,
You're there's a bunch of queens around. We're gonna play Celine.
It's goofy, it's fun. It can be. I like songs like that can both be something really powerful and celebratory and oh my God, like now that's the thing I need to let go of,
Mm-hmm.
release, or, move
Mm-hmm.
on from at the same time. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of those songs.
Well, it really hit, and I was hooked.
I don't know. Do
And
we
here we
think
are.
Rachel or do we think Celine?
I think Rachel,
Yeah,
because
definitely.
I like as soon as because I immediately went back to your class. I wasn't like, oh, I now I'm doing SoulCycle. I was like, I'm going to Rachel's classes at SoulCycle.
Mm.
And and then I started to meet some of the other instructors that it's like you do connect with people over the music, but it's the vibe. It's like every person creates a different vibe in the studio, and the one that resonates with you is the one that you want to return to all the time. And that's why it does feel like a nightclub.
Yeah. Yeah.
I only got a ponytail in my mouth once,
That's good.
and I was pissed,
Because
actually.
you moved to the front row really quickly, I feel like.
Thank you.
Um,
I did.
I I will say I think a lot of the credit also goes to the Castro community and Soul Cycle in the Castro, especially in that time period. That was just 2015 was just such a special time in that studio. 2016, I guess. Well, it's a little
Yeah.
over 10 years old. So yeah, it was right in the
Yeah.
beginning, and it was just
Yep.
so much energy was happening both like politically and social, just every which way. And everybody that came to those studios was holding kind of that too. Like there's a lot to like feel grief about and a lot to try to like persevere through and celebrate and grow with. And that studio in that time period, just like freeze it in my heart forever. That
Yeah.
sounds dark, but like hold it in my heart forever.
Yeah. Well, there is this weird like nostalgia happening for 2016 right now. I don't know. I honestly, I know nothing about internet trends. This one just
Yeah.
blew over my desk, and I don't know if it's worth going into but like where all of us were probably in 2016. It was a really weird time in culture, and
Yeah.
and I guess it was the beginning of the end, wasn't it?
Yeah. But yeah. On a lighter note, Rachel, we like to ask our guests if they're feeling like the prize, and we're wondering, are you feeling like the prize today?
Feeling like the prize. I'm gonna say yes, even though I tend to not do anything past like noon. I'm a morning girl. We've talked about that. I'm up at
Yeah,
4 a.m.
yeah.
for work. But I'm really excited to be here, and I knew this would be later in my day. But I've had a really good day, and kind of knowing that this was later in my day was how can I take care of my energy and my excitement level, and from everything what I'm eating to what I'm doing. If I had a big day today, still making sure that like, oh, I could arrive here feeling really good. And I feel like the prize because I have that relationship with myself now. And that feels good.
Yeah, that's a really great place to be when you can you take care of yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. When you were in, the beginning years of Soul Cycle and like that time in your life, it's been like a journey since then of like where you were, and like the transition to where you are now has been profound. Do you want to take us back to like where you were and kind of like that relationship to fitness, and like how, some of your own like pain and physical pain like brought you to getting into a deeper relationship with your body and how you feel?
Yeah, I love being back at SoulCycle now. I took a few years of a break after about 7 years prior to that, and being back at it now. And you coming to my class again, visiting from LA, back to the Castro, seeing so many people that meant a lot to me over those years prior to the pandemic, seeing them again, remembering what I was like when I first started at SoulCycle all those years ago, 12 years maybe, and thinking about it's not that I didn't appreciate things, but I didn't appreciate things not because ever like I was like, oh, I was flashy or anything like that, but I didn't appreciate like just how good it was. I didn't appreciate what my body was doing and what my skill set even was. Like it was almost always like more and more and more, be better, be better. Like I never just kind of like sat and looked around and was like, oh my God, like we have this going on. And being able to, I started at SoulCycle. The math will help, and I'll just share it all. at 22 and I'm 34 now, like that is a really big difference for anyone in their life, like whatever you're doing. But for me, SoulCycle got to be this through line. But where I was in my body and in my mind at 22 is so different than where I am
Mm-hmm.
at age 34. And it's just been so cool then to be able, I think the kids are calling it the SoulCycle Renaissance on TikTok.
Oh,
And then
great.
I see
Mm.
people doing, which I, I that's what I hear. And then I saw people do like a lot of throwbacks of like 2016, like what you looked like. And I love stuff like that. I'm a very nostalgic person. I'm a very, like, I will celebrate a date that is like, oh, the last time I used this mug and I got this
Mm.
mug from my great aunt. And like, I like will honor anything. And I think that kind of, I'm already bringing this up a lot, but goes into that. Like, I love to honor things. And again, it can be a high, high or a low, low, and just like being with that. So, all that to say, it's very cool to be back and be in my 30s and just like have deep appreciation for every class I do. I have the gift of teaching so limited now that they're mostly sold out and it's full and that's an
Mm.
energy. But I remember the day we shut down in March of 2020, and I was just like, I would do anything. Like my ego had just wanted these sold out rooms only. And that like week, I was just like, I would do anything for just two people, me and two people. They can be in the back of the room. Like, and that shift got to kind of transport me through the next few years. Now I got to be back and I got to take better care of my body. They asked me to do a 10 p.m. class the other day. They're doing this like
There's a
soul after
10
10
dark thing.
p.m.
It's
Soul
like, I
Cycle
want to
after
celebrate
dark.
it. Soul Cycle After
My
Dark. It's
dream.
gonna be, it's gonna be such a vibe. And like, I really thought about, like, when I was asked to do it, I was like, oh yeah, that sound, and the body I am in now and the life that I live now, it was like a hard no. And
Hmm.
saying no, to a company or to something you would be excited about is definitely hard. But I was just like, I don't move my body past a certain time of day. Like, I
Oh my
have,
God, I love
things
that.
that
I
I
want
know
that on the
make me feel
t-shirt.
better.
I don't
Um,
move my body past a certain time of day.
Yeah,
That's
we're gonna
great.
make merch with that on it.
I mean, I like walk and do things, but like I
Sure,
try
sure,
not
sure. No, I get
to.
it.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope I'm answering your question.
No, that's
It,
totally. I love
yeah,
that.
I would have said yes and
What?
really pushed myself 10 years ago, and then like felt
Yeah.
awful for 5 days, and now I'm like,
And that's
no,
the delta. That's the journey that
yeah,
you've made, is that
yeah,
you now take care of the body that you live in, as opposed to
yeah,
pushing it to the absolute brink and having to pay the price later.
yeah. That was a big learning in the pandemic for me. Was I actually like loved the slowdown. I loved working from home. There were things that like my values were brought up of like, wow, I didn't like deeply appreciate that. But even though I slowed down really well, suddenly everything else came up for me and I was ready and willing to look at it. Like, I think, that happened to a lot of people. But for me, one of the big things was a lot what was going on in my body. Like, I think not that anyone has like all their mental health, grasped and perfect. And like, I for sure don't. But in those years, I was like feeling like pretty good here. And then it was the body that was just like, you haven't listened to me in a decade and we're going to talk to you now about that. And that was so hard for me. And so yeah, being able to come out on the other side, like really sit and listen over those years and now be able to do the things that I want to and feel good about. And I just have such deep appreciation, like to reconnect with you, to reconnect with a lot of people when they walk through the doors to take my class now, and like re-meet them and them get reintroduced to like who I am. It's been very cool that I think people still see my values and see what I bring as a teacher, and now get to see me live them and really embody them. When I look back, I was just so hard on myself and so just pushed
Yeah.
myself to the limit. I think fitness does that too to people, and being in it at that time was really stressful. And I don't know if the industry as a whole is like going to kind of make a change towards the things that like do really feel good and see like are very safe and nurturing for people, because it's not super sexy or flashy and it doesn't really sell. But places like SoulCycle do, I think they do a really good job of, at least in the training programs, every time we're like relearning things, they really come back to focusing on the mind body connection, the soulful component of SoulCycle. So I feel really at home there again now,
Yeah.
2 days a week. very different than 6 days a week. But
Yeah.
in my life and in journey in general, and I hope people feel that when they take my class and are finding that in other aspects of their lives, like you and the journey you've taken.
Yeah.
What a 10 years.
It has been. I'd love to go back to like sort of the conversation that you learn to have with yourself around what's going on with your body. And it's so interesting to me that it's like you can keep a lid on things for so long. And I think it's like often when you've got like the adrenaline, the like all of these,
When your classes are
yes,
are
where you're
sold
sold out, and
yeah.
yes, you're just like and it is ego, I think, where you're like I live up here. And it's like, in order to live up here requires often for you to shut down some messages that are coming from in here. And it's like to rewire like this voice from inside to be like, okay, now your body's going to tell you what's up, because now you actually can't operate up here. One, because of maybe circumstance, or two, it's like an injury. Something just takes you to a point where like you no longer operate up here. But that like what does that sound like when your body is suddenly like, okay, we're about to work on this now? It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Oh, it's so crazy, and also just so like it's fact. And I think even really skeptical people are still like, oh, like I do have that experience of like a knot in my stomach when, something's really like I'm about, the person says, can you hop on a call, or or give me a call, right? Like everybody has those somatic experiences throughout their life. Um, but really being able to like sit with it and recognize like, oh, like this is a whole, like the body doesn't speak whatever language you speak, like English person for me, but it has its own language, and you have to be in connection with it. And for me, it was coming out in like so many pieces of my life were actually like really good at a certain point, and that was when all the stuff came up. Which for me, it was like giving my body this like permission to be safe and be still and be with the love of my life turned husband, and like all these things that I think sometimes in like the wellness world, it'll be like, oh, you're feeling that way. And then like, it must be because of your relationship. And like, I don't think that that's always true, but I think it can show up differently for everyone. But for some people, and for me, it was like taking that stillness, taking that pause, my body finally experiencing safety. It was like, okay, now if you try to go back to the way it was, we are going to fight. Even if you go back 1%, like I kid you not,
Yeah.
like my body wouldn't even let me do 1% of what I used to do for like a whole 2 years. And
Wow.
it showed up for me. It was like hormonal acne, like crazy. It was chronic pain that felt like I was being stabbed, like things that I think had kind of always been there, but I had been covering up. I had covered up with the push. I had covered up with, the acne meds, or I had covered up with the, get limited sleep, eat this thing, and my body adapted to it, or not eat enough, right? And my body had just adapted to that. And then when I started showing it, hey, like let's learn about nutrition and eat appropriately. Let's see what it feels like to be in a safe container, in a safe relationship. All those things that had been, I think, too scared to express themselves were just like, I'm coming out. And then that was really hard. But
Sure.
um,
Because you're like, I thought we had a lid on this.
yeah. Wouldn't that just be so nice to just put, the hardest part in that though actually was kind of seeking help with some of those things before I like really went internal with things like something like acne, for instance. Like the world then wants to say like, oh, just fix it quickly. Or first of all, being like, that's bad when it's like such a normal thing for so many people. But then the world being like, oh, like, red light, like all these things that are like really overwhelming, really expensive. And then different like from products that are like harsh or medication that I totally like, there's medication I'm on for certain things and it has changed my life. Like I'm not against it, but there are times and spaces I started to explore that should I just take this pill to cover up this like message and this communication? Or can I really sit with like this discomfort and figure out where that's really coming from? And for me, it was truly a relationship of not listening to my body, which I thought would show up more in my chronic pain, which it did too. But my skin was a big messenger for that of like, I would just, wake up, teach a class, not have eaten before the class, chug coffee, do another class, like eat something processed, like not listen to my body and its cues, push through a nap with coffee, things like that. And when I started just being like, oh, I don't do coffee anymore, not because it's good nor bad, but because for me, it was this, I'm not listening to the cues of my body. I'll
Mm.
have, decaf and almost have the same experience, a ritual of a morning cup, like I'll sip some of my husband's fresh coffee, but what was happening was I was just bypassing the messages and the like natural cues of my body. And so my hormones got all messed up. And the minute that I really, really slowly backtracked and was like, okay, I'm going to listen to everything. Oh, you want a
Mm.
nap? We're going to go nap now. Like napping was foreign to me.
Mm.
Getting enough sleep, listening to the hunger cues of my body, all of that I just hadn't done. It was push, push, push through. Um, so yeah, it's almost like the more you force the silence, then the louder everything will get ultimately.
Yeah.
So, how did you get into SoulCycle, or how did you you've had a lot of experience with your body and using that as kind of like your tool of expression. What was that journey like to get to where you are now? What was the first way that you used your body for things? I know we talked about you training to be a ballerina and all that. Was that the first?
It started a little sooner than that, but I just want to say I love talking to people and when they mirror like what you do when you don't have like words for it yourself. So just thank you for that. I feel like everyone needs moments like that. So just thank you.
Oh,
You're
you're
using words that I'm like,
welcome.
oh, I like how he just described my relationship with movement.
Well, it was
Um,
intentional and planned, so you're welcome.
I had I have scoliosis and I have an S-shaped curve, which then ultimately means it's not super noticeable to most people. But when they discovered it when I was still like in deep growth spurts in elementary school, they put me in a back brace. And I had to be in this back brace up until like end of high school. By the time I was at the end of high school, I had a nighttime back brace. And these are like huge plastic things that like you latch onto your body and they go down half your leg. It's different for different bodies, but for me that was what we decided to do so that I wouldn't have to have surgery. I have a lot of friends that have had to have surgery for scoliosis. And I was a ballet dancer at that time. So it was like, how do I keep moving, keep being able to do ballet, do this process that was like looking back, like it was very intense for a young girl to go through and experience and have like things pressing and sucking my stomach in
Mm.
all the time. And I couldn't really move well. And I still have no sense of style, which I actually kind of love. I love just being in like comfier clothes and my wardrobe is very simple. And but like it's that time of life where you can be exploring that stuff. And I had jeans from Costco, nothing wrong with jeans from Costco, that could go up to the middle of my belly. And I'd have to use like one of my dad's like weird belts to like hold it because I couldn't feel my pants and the plastic. So just like hold them up high, only wore baggy t-shirts. Um, and it was pretty it helped me, I think, build some character with the people I was around and my friendships. And I didn't have to deal with some of the things that I think middle school and high school girls have to deal with when it comes to their bodies, because I was having my whole own other weird relationship with my body. But in that time, they said the only times I could take off my back brace were when I was showering and when I was dancing. And I was like, I'm just then going to dance as much as I can. And
Wow.
obviously there was a limit, like, but I was like, get me out of this thing, sign up for everything. I went to performing arts high school, ultimately, my last 2 years of school. I went to college for dance. Like, I was like, that is what we are doing. And I was very blessed to have parents that were in the healthcare field who got me into things like Pilates and yoga when I was in like sixth grade. I was doing little Pilates privates with these old ballet teachers of mine and yoga from like the top people in Portland, like at such a young age. And I very quickly had a relationship with movement with my body that, definitely changed in my 20s when like so much pressure was on me. but the original intention was always move so that this can last a while and I can feel good and I don't have to be in pain and I can avoid something longer term that could be more serious, like, which might be kind of a scary thing to do to a young kid, but I was very aware of like what my goals were with the things I wanted to do with my body rather than my goals of like how my body needed to look or be forced into. Um, so yeah, I don't really talk about that much and how it relates to where I'm at now. But I mean, now that I'm in my 30s, I'm like, I'm lifting weights because of my scoliosis in my spine. Like I have been very blessed to have that relationship. You know, the noise comes in where it's like, okay, then it should like, and I really have good tools to quiet that and really be with like, no, this is because like, you know, it didn't stop when you got out of the back brace, making sure that your spine stays healthy. The aches and pains I feel now can be totally related to that. And so it's really taking care of what can help me continue to feel really good and movements that support that.
I also think it's like that you were laying the groundwork for what you ultimately do now. It's like you were building a relationship, a good relationship with your body, and like learning tools that, you know, of course we learn things when we're young that are, you're like, great, we're on the right path. And then the world gets you, right? You start to like, the messages do come in and you have a different relationship with your body. But it's really interesting to hear that like, gosh, you had parents who were like, okay, you should like, this is like, it is about the longevity, like that same message of like how you now coach and like teach movement is like, make it so you're not having to recover from it. Make it so you are building longevity into it. Make it so this is something that is building you to a healthy place, not just trying to hit some external goal. And like that, it's like you've come back to yourself in some ways, it sounds like. Does it feel that way?
It feels that way more than you know. Even when I like share my story a little bit here and there, I'm always like remembering pieces, but I love that because it reminds me how easy it can be to be like, I'm gonna just like forget about that part of my story. When in reality, like it is a really huge part of your story and it informs a lot. Like I I constantly forget that when my dance career was like about to get started, I broke my foot, but it was more like a dislocation, which sounds weird. It like splattered when I was dancing and had to get all screwed together
Sorry.
and multiple surgery. Splattered was a bad word to use.
Oh,
No, I
that-
think
yeah,
that was
that-
actually a
it's-
perfect word.
yeah.
Really a great visual.
And like I forget that like that happened to me and that was my dance career completely ended. My pain in my foot, I feel arthritic often and I have a relationship with that. And like it took about 10 years for me to like safely almost like massage my foot and like cry and like have this like, oh, like that did happen to us. And I get like I was in New York at the time. I was 22. I actually SoulCycle. I would go in like crutches in my boot to SoulCycle and sit in the back of the SoulCycle room. In like this was 2012-ish. Sit in the back of the room and just like pedal my legs, not even lift out of the saddle in that recovery of my foot injury. And that was ultimately how I ended up teaching there. But I like forget a lot that was part of my story because it was really hard. I don't want to remember it. It's not the worst thing that could ever happen to someone. But when it's that relationship with your body, it can be so easy to be like, we're just gonna like pretend that didn't happen. When meanwhile, like you said, like you can look back at your life, right? Hindsight's 2020, but in a really beautiful or the like the thread of your life, like you can really look at it backwards to like see where it's taken you and it all connects. And I never would have found, gosh, for me, if I hadn't had my back brace, I wouldn't have pursued dance so hard. I wouldn't have gone to college for dance where it was New York at the peak of SoulCycle. When I broke my foot, I would never have pivoted to SoulCycle. They moved me to San Francisco. I mean, throw in like cats and animals that came along the way. Like I wouldn't have found them where I did. The pandemic wouldn't have hit where I was in my life and career. I wouldn't have moved home for a year, like connected with this person who's now my husband, and like all those threads just like And actually, literally deciding to drop everything and move home was because everything had just come up. I had lost one of my cats and then both of my cats. And I was like, I'm just gonna like go be with like the people in my life who I want to be near, like my family, and the world shut down. And then that led me to him. And that's another one of those moments where it's like, oh, like, yeah, would I have not loved to like, or I would have loved to not experience like grief and loss and saying
Mm-hmm.
goodbyes and all those really hard things. But like, look at what it gave me. And I can
Yeah.
hold space, deep gratitude for that pain and have that. And all that is all just, back to a little version of me as a girl choosing to say yes to a back brace to take care of her body.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I hope I can think of her fondly when I'm 80 and say, like, thank you, like putting my suitcase up or something. Like, it's because of her. And I think we all have those through lines in our life, but it's really hard to remember the harder moments. It's really easy to remember. Well, which is funny as I say that, because I think when somebody gives you a compliment, like the compliment can stay with you, but versus like, one tiny critique or like the
Yep.
critiques are always way louder. So it's interesting how then with
Yeah.
like physical trauma, emotional trauma, like we can easily be like, and block that out.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I
And
don't
maybe
think the
because it's
body
so
will block it
painful.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's the
Yes.
only
Yeah.
way to then the body and mind are so smart. They're like, well, we got to get her to another day.
Yeah.
And what do we got to do to,
Yeah.
make it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And not everybody has that privilege too of being able to sit with some of those harder things. But
Right.
I think my little moments of my story have really helped me be a better teacher, be a better space holder, do
Mm-hmm.
something like you said, Alex, like it's my art form. It's creative for me to teach and hold space for people. So I feel really blessed that I get to do that and be a little healthier now and
Yeah.
feel better.
I mean, I love how you're talking about your relationship with your body, and when you're an 80-year-old woman, you are using words like us and we. Like, you're very aware of this entity within you, and also that you're partnering with to get through life and all that. And I think that's a challenge, and most of us just aren't in the situations or the scenarios where you really have to think about my foot breaking, splattering, um, and that little girl and the decision of wearing the brace and all of that stuff. And you're thinking ahead to being an 80-year-old woman and who she is going to be. And I just think it's really beautiful how you're talking about these people and giving them their own essence and like kind of honoring them, which I think it's hard because we're just have our heads down. We're just trying to get through life, and and maybe that's from your experiences that you're able to do that. But I don't know. I feel moved by that.
It is. It's like the pieces of you that
Yeah.
all go into like what it means to be you. And I
Yeah.
think so often we get confused that like we've talked about, like the voices in your head are sometimes from out here, or they're like an earlier version of you asking for help, or it's like these parts that live inside you. And yes, there's going to be a later version of you that's like down the road. And like, let's hope that we're all taking care of who we are today so that when we are 80, like there is less pain, but there's also like more fullness,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, you're preparing for 80-year-old Rachel to have an enjoyable life, and that takes a certain level of consciousness and being present now to also think about how you're going to be in the future. So I think that's a really great reminder. And now I'm thinking about all the things I need to start or stop doing.
so get ready for 80-year-old Alex.
Yeah.
Start laying the groundwork for
God,
him.
my hip flexors are tight. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Has that changed the way that you, like, in the way that you coach people? Like, just, one, do the people who gravitate toward you, are they necessarily like looking for that, for this more holistic type of fitness and movement? Or is it the other way where you'll take on a client and then get them to have more of that perspective? It probably goes both ways, but
That is a great question. I take pride in the fact that I it goes back to like literally how my parents raised me. And my dad was an emergency room doctor, and my mom was a social work, psychiatric therapist. And so I had like a very early concept of mind and body. And, many times where, that relationship was almost fighting each other, right? Because they were such high professionals at what they did. Um, Meanwhile, like they're both very into mind body approaches now. That's kind of been a cool journey for all of us. But I was always very aware of like what's going on in the body and what's going on in the mind. And I think when I started teaching, yeah, I had like I had like hair as blonde as you, but shorter, and I think I was a little spunkier and than I am now. And I definitely had like a athletic edge to myself, but it was always really met with I was really vulnerable, I was really authentic, I was really goofy. I still am all those things, but somehow that like created this like experience that I think people thought they were signing up for a really badass workout, and they still got that. And I like dove headfirst into the like catharticness of teaching anything. Like I taught at Barry's boot camp for a very long time, and like I would bring the same energy I bring to SoulCycle to teach there as well. And like that's a very intense experience. I think it's more intense physically on the body than SoulCycle, where you can kind of lock in and like flow. And I've since taught a million other types of modalities, and across the board, it's I think people, I don't advertise it as like, it's going to be a soulful experience. Like I advertise it as a workout, and then I think people stay because they realize I have that, like, that's my magic, and it's what I get to, I always think of it as co-creation. So it's like whatever they're willing to like be vulnerable with me about, even in like, they're not talking to me, but like I can read their energy. That's kind of always been definitely like a skill set of mine. It's hard when I'm like entrepreneurial because I'm like, how do I describe like this thing that I do? And that was so hard in the pandemic. And like, I think I like did an okay job. I was really lucky. A lot of my old clients stayed with me, but there's nothing I love more now than when people show up to take my class, or on my work trips with my boss. Like I'm training all different types of people from all over. And, they come in thinking like they're going to get a training session from just like the trainer. And then I always get like a message after being like, oh, like my body and soul like really needed that. And was sweating, and that was really hard. I take a lot of pride in that, but how to verbalize that, it's not always super easy. People can be skeptical, like that might not be what they think they want. And that's hard about the fitness industry, but I just keep doing what I'm doing and having fun.
Yeah. The door in is like what everyone thinks they're looking for, right? It's like the badass workout, right? It's like, and the people stay who are aligned with you and aligned with like what you are offering. And it's almost like a sneaky way to get people in. It's like you're gonna sweat, you're gonna like all these things, and like, yes, that is true, and there's a little magic that comes with it. And I personally think that like when the magic is a surprise, it's even better. It's like to market the magic takes away from the magic, where it's like, let somebody feel what it feels like to be in the room with you, to be, right? Because then it's like
so great to hear. I'm taking all that. I mean, that's going to be part of my like mantra, right? Before I go in and teach, is remembering that.
Yeah. Because I do think the right people, as things arrive in our lives as we need them, the right people arrive. And I imagine that you've shown up in people's lives like you did for me at a time when, I mean, I was like, I was so anti-SoulCycle and so needing something. And yet here it was like, and I think had it been anyone else, I might not have fallen in love with it that day. And it's like, that is the, like what is special about things sometimes. It's like, we were talking earlier about like, you only hear, somebody could say the same sentence to you 100 times, but it will not land until you're ready to hear it.
Yeah.
And I imagine that like when you've got a new, you're working with a new client, or it's like you kind of like, you can probably feel when it's landing, right?
Oh, absolutely. Everything that you just said reminds me of like, it was a word that I didn't really realize was what I was doing until like way after the fact. And once I realized I was doing it, I was like, we have to change so many things. But it's kind of a harsh word, but it was this idea that like I was being really manipulative in my life, in like many, many areas. Um, and what I mean by that is like I would even manipulate like my dating life, right? It was like making sure I looked a certain way and acted a certain way. Like so ultimately I'm manipulating anyone that's like interested in dating me into like liking that version of me and not the real like authentic version of me until it's time to show that part or um even teaching, like everything. I think teaching in a room has always been like my place where I'm just like, I'm so myself and I'm so in flow. And it's like such a different space for me. But yeah, and like the advertising for it, right? Like, okay, how can I even like choose the right words to convince people to come and market it the right way? And, it reminds right before I actually met my husband and like we had our paths had crossed before but never romantically until like literally the moment it happened. But I had done a like deep meditation, and in that meditation I had just like felt and like experienced the sensation of you can't make the right thing right. And I don't even when I say that I'm like I don't know if that even like means anything to anyone else, but for me it was this like experience of like I had been forcing so much and manipulating so much. Like the right things will be right no matter what game I try to play or what makeup I put on or what show I put on. Like it will be
Oh,
right
that's
just simply because it is.
Yeah.
yeah,
And it was
that's
like,
really powerful.
I literally like was on the beach where we ultimately ended up getting married. Like this beach has just been like so magical to me. And I was just sitting there. I did this meditation. I like came out of it, and he showed up in my life a week later, and I was just so like, can't make the right thing right. Like I'm just, no manipulation going on here. I'm just fully myself. And I now walk into most rooms with that, and I can catch when it's not happen, or I can catch when I want to play the game or I want to fit. And like there's, we're in a world where like you do have to, there's time for whatever you want to call it, the mask or like what, like there's
Sure.
time to like, okay, let's get from point A to point B, or let's like, get what I want from someone corporate and like whatever. And there's times like in your personal life or in things that are really like of importance to you to be like, it should be important to people also. It it should be important to people also to really value themselves and everything that they're about, and to be loved exactly as they are that day, to not change or fix a single thing, to not need for anything, and just like be. And that's really hard too. And it's also like, okay, but like I do want heart health, and I, do want, stronger bone. Like, so playing with that has just kind of been this game for me. And I use a lot of science for that. Like a lot, like I love that you use the word magic, and I use it like it is so magical, the certain things that I get to bring to the table. And like, I'm a big believer in like, I'm going to read the studies and I'm going to experience it for myself. And maybe that's just me, but I'm going to also support you in experiencing for yourself. And kind of having that data is really important too. And that goes back to like doctor, therapist. Let's use it both. I said
Yeah.
like ER doctor, right? Like
Yeah.
literally like life saving, like cutting you open to do this, and the body, the mind, and just like connecting them constantly. It can be magical, but also data driven magic sometimes.
We love science.
Love science.
Yeah, I do.
So,
I love science, and I love magic. I love the things that science
And they
can't
can
explain.
coexist.
yeah.
And they can coexist.
Totally. Yeah.
Science can't define everything or explain everything, and what it can explain, we should maybe listen to.
Yeah, exactly.
So, in addition to continuing to be an instructor and helping people learn how to use their bodies, you've also gotten into grief therapy and loss therapy specifically for pets, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want to talk about those kitties.
Yeah. Can you tell us more about that?
We locked our kittens away for this, and I can like hear them studying. Like,
Hey, kids are
they're
kids, and
so
sometimes they need to go
dramatic.
away.
So dramatic. Um, and they're so fun to have, and it's cool to be in pet loss and grief work and have these like young little creatures. And sure, everyone's on like, and then they're gonna die one day. And there's definitely like a very like present version of me that can like have that like overthinking and sadness. And then there's a version of me that has been through what I went through with pet loss, that has guided many other people through it, and is like, and like the doors and portals that like losing a beloved animal can open in the right circumstance can be just like so transcendent and powerful and life affirming, even in the loss. And I don't want to say like I got addicted to it, because like that's the wrong term, but when my first cat died, the feeling that came with it, when I was single, living alone, she was my first anything that had ever like died on my body like that, and making the choice to let her go, like there, when I can go back to that feeling, I'm like overwhelmed and will cry. And it's yes, because I miss her. And that feeling, that like deep confidence in like the universe that it like gave me in that moment is like inexplicable. And I feel so grateful that I had it, and that it totally just like pushed me into areas of my life that when I look back, I'm like, the thread was always there. It all makes sense now. Like we haven't, like I worked in rescue for a long time. I always adopted old animals. And so she was my first one to go, but it just all made sense. And it continued to click in ways that I just never would have anticipated. And so yeah, there's times with my new kittens where I'm just like, oh my God, that's gonna be so tragic and sad. And it is. And if it was tomorrow, it'd be tragic and sad. And if it was in 20 years, it would be heartbreaking as well. And there's just so much life to live and experience and learn from each other along the way that I'm really excited about. My husband was the one that was like, I lost 3 senior cats in kind of a short period of time. My husband was like, in a few, like when we get cats again, like they're kittens and you deserve a longer window. Cause it was really, that's kind of what got me into it, was it was so tough on my body, like the caretaking of an older animal. And yeah, I specialize in, pet loss grief, because there was nothing there to really help me in the way that I thought that I could have felt supported. And so that's just been a driving factor where I started just supporting people. I went and like got certified in pet loss bereavement, where it was just me and a bunch of vets, which was crazy because it was like, they're not taught these end of life services for their clients. They're not taught how to handle all that or aftercare. And so I just had I was like, please teach me too. Like I don't work with animals, but like I want to be there in it. So I got to go through this really long, awesome training. And it reminds me too of like my dad. This is part of his journey and our journey as like mind body approach. He would tell me when I was learning more about nutrition and preventative care and health, he was like, oh, we had one course in nutrition in all of medical school at Columbia University, like top of the top, like amazing doctor. And, that he's taught to like cut you open and save your life. And all that, I think, kind of got me into this like idea of there's so much more to care than like the main action that's happening right in front of you. And a lot of services, yeah, a vet is a vet, and they're going to like help save your baby's life in many ways, or help everyone be strong and healthy for their lifespan. And there's definitely more of a need for grief work and for end of life care and services. And I just got like super into it, and experiencing it in my own body, and like feeling the loss and the like caretaking of like, I am not drinking water how I should. I'm not eating. This was, making the decision to end a living being's life, if that's the decision you get to make, sometimes you don't, was like so mind boggling and impossible, that I just really found like a really deep love in helping other people make that decision, or processing it in the after fact, or the logistics of what we do with bodies after they die, and what you do with yourself to take care of yourself before, during, and after. Like I just got really, really fell in love with it. And every time I work with people, it takes me back to my experiences. And it's like this gift that my little old kitties like gave me to do that. And it relates a lot to the body in general. Like it totally has impacted how I train people, or how I hold space for people, whatever somebody's grieving, be it, a job, or a child, or a great, great, great grandparent who lived a very long, like it's all very different. And yet the way the body processes grief is all very similar. The way that a lot of people feel alone in their grief, unless it's something that like is more common, in air quotes. But grief is the most common thing, like birth and death are the two most common things. So to work with
But
people's bodies, yeah.
Enough.
we don't talk enough. Sorry to interrupt you. We don't talk about enough about death. It's like I'm starting to get a little bit interested in just like
Yeah.
not being. I don't think I'm afraid of it, but just what does grief mean? What is this? Death doesn't necessarily have to be bad. It is. It's not. It is
The most
the
natural.
most natural thing. Aside from being born and. Yeah, I don't know. I'm very intrigued and fascinated by this work that you're doing, and also just how you're mixing something that you kind of assume is just in your head, like, oh, I'm just sad about this, with, well, how are you feeling this grief in your body? Where's that showing up? What does that mean?
And what does it need
And what does it
to
need?
take care of to move through it,
Yeah.
right? And it is this like incredibly universal experience that is like too scary for anybody to acknowledge, and then it gets like backburnered and you're supposed to just like swallow it.
Yeah.
And then, as we said, when you don't deal with it, it only comes out louder.
Yeah.
And you're learning to process it.
Yeah, I think I had experienced different types of grief along the way in my life, but in a culture that's very grief phobic, like I didn't name the loss of my dance career or a like healthy feeling good foot as grief until 10 years later when when I let that wave of grief come through me and experience it and that version of my life, like there was like it helped the pain too physically in my foot and it helped how I connect to people recognizing it. um and so with pet loss grief, because it's still disenfranchised in many ways, meaning like it's not talked about a lot, or it is, or it's brushed under the rug, or people assume you'll get over it quickly, and people don't. Like it's part of their schedule and their life and the guilt that can come with it, and um so many different financial things, like so many things, that it's just been a real gift to be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like this is all encompassing of so many different experiences of the human experience. And I'm still like this little baby in the world of like death and grief work. But it's very cool to be in it and very cool to see how it relates to so many other aspects that I'm interested in. And kind of, I used to always be really afraid of death. And I think, there's times where my body still really is. Like I could feel a fight or flight panic attack start to happen. And that's when I get to kind of be like, I don't have to believe everything that my mind thinks is true, or even that my body thinks is true. Like the relationship between my mind and body, they're just trying to keep me safe. If suddenly I'm going to overthink something that causes something that feels panic attacky, I'm able to be like, oh, like I get it now. Versus I would be like, stop, or I'd let it run the show. Like it was one of those two options instead of like, oh, I hear you. I hear that we're afraid. I hear this is hard. I hear this is not easy. Do we want to like go there now? No, it's maybe not the time to go there now. We should look at that late, like instead of a force bottle up or like a expression that maybe has been pent up for too long. It's kind of like this constant, like they're just messengers. And I really love when sometimes I have those moments of deep fear, and then it requires a lot of trust and a lot of faith. Um, and talking about it and not being alone with it. People are too alone, like just in general, like even prior to the pandemic and now more than ever, it's like it's all about like the individual. And now this is like a whole other rant, but I just don't want people to feel alone. Like I don't want them to feel alone in their grief or their relationship with their body or body dysmorphia or nutrition. Like community is what's going to help and change and save lives. And even like three people talking on a podcast and people hearing this, like having conversations, having dialogues, even when people disagree, like all of that is just so important to me. And I have no idea where it's going to end up, but this is where it is now.
I mean, I think the arc, not that your life is by any means over, but the arc of your life to now and then what you're planning on doing is very clear to me, and really helping people to remember that mind body connection. And like I was saying, you know, earlier about you're talking about us and she and that kind of stuff. Like, you know, I think a lot of the times we feel lonely sometimes because we're not comfortable sitting with ourselves and our body and that kind of stuff because we don't want to sit in the discomfort. And so we go to escape, and it's like you're leaving this person, yourself, alone to fend through these things and pushing things down and whatnot. But the better relationship, the better the relationship is that you can have with your mind and your body when you're alone and feeling whole, the better you can be as that ripples out and the connections and the relationships that you have outside of yourself. So, yeah, I mean, kudos.
You're doing it.
Yeah, you're doing it. That's really cool.
It makes me think of Jane Fonda was very, and I like definitely being in fitness in my 20s, I was like, okay, I get it. Like, I'll dress up like Jane Fonda for Halloween. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
But she, like, at some point in her life, I heard it somewhere, and she just like talked about just kind of these three acts of her life. And when you think about at least her career, what I know of, and I know she's been phenomenal in many ways, like fitness star that we all know her as, and then actor, and then she's also this activist, and she has always kind of inspired me with how she takes like where her body's at, where her mind's at, and of course she's very, you know, privileged and now has money and you know, presence that people want. But I think anybody at any, you can change your life at any moment, which is incredible. And I have, when my cat died, the first cat that died, I literally within a 24-hour period changed everything in my life, and it was incredible. Do I want to do that again? Like, it might happen at some point. Like, it was very intense, but it was so awesome. And then kind of it definitely made me re-examine things. But I think it's just so cool to think of, like, you know, nothing's really ever over. Everything's just going to keep it's like regenerative, right? And the regeneration. And so I'm, you know, in my mid 30s now. I think I can say that at 34. And it's like deciding now, like, how I do want to feel and be at 70, 80, if I'm blessed enough to even get there. So, okay, I also want to like enjoy my life now as much as I can, but how can I let things be regenerative versus just like constantly sustaining? Because that's not going to feel good either. And like, what, I'm going to sustain where I was at 28? No, I'm going to throw those jeans away and go buy new jeans that fit my body now, and it's going to feel amazing. Or when I have friends that like have babies and people want to bounce back, it's like, it's okay. You don't have to. I totally get, you know, I want to respect how everybody feels in their body, but it's like, you're now mother. You are now parent. You are now like, or you've experienced that grief or that celebration, or you're now that age and you've reached that milestone. You've paid off that, like, you're different. And so it's okay to let your cells and your body reflect that as well along the way. And so I always liked how she had like those acts, and I'm sure she changed a million times, but it just kind of has always made me be like, okay, now we're entering, you know, this act, and it will have a lot to do with what I did before, but it also gets to be whatever it wants to be.
And it builds. It
And it
builds on it.
builds.
Right? You're just like, you're
builds.
growing, you're making it stronger, you're like becoming more of who you are.
You're shedding, you're like with that regenerative side. I got really into in the pandemic. Oh, I wish I could remember her name right now, but her business concept, like how she coached people, was regenerative business. I think her name is Samantha Garcia. Regenerative business was her concept for helping people build their little entrepreneurial journeys. And I was this online fitness coach. And so I learned a lot about regenerative farming, and it's just like very simple concepts, very into like death and life cycles. And it was just like, we gotta apply that to fitness. We have to apply, like, why am I working out like I'm 24? Like, I can't do it. Can you? Like, no. So figuring out what to let in, a lot of it will be your thought patterns or even how your body relates to something and letting that go. And that's, you know, grief and letting it go, but that's the soil. And that's like, I think that's what our culture forgets, is like, that literally like is the nutrients for your soil, right? Like the bodies that die, or like the things, the like thing poop, right? Like, it literally creates soil and it creates life. Like, things that we think are gross or unnecessary or expendable, and it's like, no, like, you can replant, you can resoil at any time, and that life cycle can happen. And no one's going to feel good if they're stuck at that part of the life cycle right before like death, loss, shedding, release, if they just get stuck there. And that's, I think, where people just like implode, or chronic pain. It happened for me, the chronic pain, the so many different things, versus like, shit, I gotta let something go. Or and yeah, it has to be a ritual, and it can be beautiful. Like it's actually in so many things are out of our control, but that's actually like in your control in a way, or like you can let it go and it wasn't your choice to let it go, but it can be in your control of you saying thank you to it. There's a, I don't want to mess up this proverb publicly, but you say like, thank you, I love you, I forgive you, and I'm sorry. Um, and if you find it, you can put it in the show notes. I'm just off the top of my head, but um, if you can, that is in your control to say those
Yeah.
4 things. You can say it to 20-year-old, even if I'm 80 and like everything goes to shit. I hope that I can, look back to 34-year-old me and be like, thank you, I love you, I forgive you, and I'm sorry, and like have that relationship in so many parts of my life.
Yeah, that's
Beautiful.
beautiful. I think we should end on that. I mean,
yeah,
we're not going to be able to top that.
No. Thank you so much for just taking the time and sharing your experience and wisdom. And I think especially just reminding people just to be connected with your body, and just all these things is really helpful. And also grief. Like, it's something that we need to talk about more. And I think it's really amazing that this is on your path. And like you were saying, the girl that wore the back brace to do this, and now I'm here and da-da-da. It's like everything makes sense in the path that you're doing. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
for
you for
all of it.
letting me be here and share my stuff and mirroring all that back to me. It's always inspiring. There was anybody watch Parks and Rec, and then we'll end
Yes.
it. But in Parks and Rec, this other, we've been binging it for the first time ever, and Amy Poehler's character Leslie Knope was just like, she's like, oh my gosh, how did she say it? I'm totally gonna butcher this, but she was like, I'm big enough to admit that sometimes I inspire myself, and just like walks away. And my husband just looked at me and like he was like, that is so you. And it's finally not in an ego way. Like, and I think everyone has this. Like, I'm sure you guys listen back to the things you say in your podcast, or the things you write and do, or in friendships and relationships. And it's like, when you have people mirroring you, you can be like, dang, like, I like what I said. You can inspire yourself with the life you're already living, and take the next step based off of you can inspire yourself to take that next step.
I mean, that's what You Are the Prize is about.
That is it. You've literally defined.
Yeah, you just you topped yourself on what to end with. Now we end off it.
Now we can end it. Thanks for joining us on another episode of You Are the Prize. Until next time, go do something that feels like you.
And we hope that means liking and subscribing. Find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
And don't forget to check out our other episodes wherever you get your podcasts.
This has been a Studio Stab production in collaboration with the Champ Effect and Alt Entertainment. Original music by Scott Martin.